All right, so we will start in Supta Baddha Konasana. Lying down, soles of the feet together, flat on the floor, though if you really want to have the block under the shoulders, you can do that. Oh, now that I said that, I think I really want the block under the shoulders. But, so, at the same time, we want to feel that level pelvis across on the floor, a little reach through the knees. All right, so coming to a Supta Baddha Konasana, reclining round angle pose with or without the block. Getting that body settled in. And feeling your breath working with your body to get it settled in. Bring your attention away from the rest of the world, from the rest of the day, and onto your mat, into your own body. And then really bringing your attention to that breath. Inhaling and exhaling, especially if you're on the block, just notice the effects that has. Makes it a little more challenging to breathe through the upper chest all the way to the lower belly. And then let's all take one long inhale all the way up to the top of the inhale and pausing a moment, not in a place of screaming, but in just a place of fullness. And then we'll gently release into the exhale, taking your time all the way to the bottom of that exhale into that moment of stillness until the next breath needs to begin. So here we do a nice long inhale. And suspend a moment or two. And then pouring down that exhale. All the way to the bottom of the exhale into that moment of stillness. And then just breathing, a few more breaths here. And if you want to take a stretch overhead with the arms before we come up, doing that. And then as gently as you can, making your way up to sitting. And we will sit in crossed legs, Sukhasana, using those arms alongside, lengthening up, getting space between the vertebrae, space in the hip sockets. And slowly release with the arms, letting the hands rest on the knees. Inhale and exhale, pouring down the sides of the neck off the tops of the shoulders. Feeling long and flat against the wall behind. And feeling every moment of those long and spacious breaths. And reach out wide through the collarbones, through the fingertips. And a big inhale and exhale, breathing the arms up overhead, taking up lots of space. And breathing the arms down. Let's come up once again, and then we'll side bend over to the right, taking up lots of space on the way up. Taking up lots of space with your side bend as you come over to the right. Coming back up, bringing that right arm back up overhead, arms down. Breathing the arms up, we'll side bend up and over to the left. Nice, spacious, and airy side bend. Back up to the center. Reach the arms wide and down. Let's do that once more each side. Breathing those arms up and over to the right. Coming back up to the center, arms down, leveling everything out, and then breathing up and over to the left. And coming up, breathing those arms down, changing the cross of the legs, and we will come forward and over, breathing across the back of the body. And then coming up, unfurling that spine vertebrae by vertebrae, back up on top of the sitting bones. Inhale and exhale. And then let's come around onto all fours. And taking a couple cats and cows. Feeling the whole spine from the tailbone to the top of the head. And then let's extend the left leg back with the toes tucked under, pressing back into that left heel. And then we'll do a couple cats and cows here. Just see how that works out. The range of motion is probably a little bit limited. And then finishing with that, really press into the left heel again, lift that right thigh for a couple breaths. Setting the right knee down, and we will switch legs, extending the right leg back with the toes tucked under, pressing back into the heel. And then seeing what happens with cat and cow here. And then pressing back into the heel, and we'll lift that left knee up again. And then setting that left leg down, take a pull back in extended child's pose. You can lift up the base of the wrist onto the pads of the fingers there. You might or might not end up sitting all the way back to the heels. And then we'll expand up and downward facing dog. Inhaling up to those sitting bones, exhale, pouring down the backs of the legs. And walking the dog or anything else you want to do. Finishing with that, finding the best downward facing dog you can do at this moment. Nothing moving but the breath. And then let's come forward to the plank, pulling those shoulder blades back along the sides of the body, out the heels long and flat on the ceiling, hinging back to downward facing dog. A little lift through the core, and then back into the hinge of the hips. Let's do that twice more. Lengthening forward, feel that plank, lifting yourself back up. And once more. And another breath in downward facing dog. Coming down, taking a sit back in child's pose. You can soften all the way back for a moment. And then coming forward onto our stomach into the Sphinx. Elbows under the shoulders, reaching out, hands pressing into the floor. So as we pull back with the elbows, it's not just pulling back with the elbows, also press the hands into the floor and feel that pull coming all the way from the fingertips. And reaching through the legs. Maybe your elbows lift as you pull more through the hands or not. And then coming down, taking the hands out wide to the side across from the shoulder on the pads of the fingers, the spider cobra, and dropping the chin as you roll up. And reaching out and long coming down. And do two more rolling ups there. So the upper back might not move a lot, but getting it to move as much as it can. And then bring the hands out in front of you, maybe kind of thumbs at where your eye line would be, coming up in a nice long spacious cobra, pulling back with those hands. And coming down, bringing the hands back alongside the ribs in the tight cobra position here. Squeeze the elbows in, And lifting up in that small cobra, or maybe it's not so small for you. Reach through the legs a little more, and coming down, and then coming back up to downward facing dog. And then through the vinyasa, any version you want, forward to the plank. So here's a version for today. You start in chaturanga in the plank, but you don't go too far. You wait until you go as far as you can before you feel like you're going to crash to the floor. And then you let those knees come in to help and continuing. Hopefully with less crash to the floor. And then we're back in downward facing dog. And let's lift the right leg up, reaching long through the heel, reaching a little longer. And big inhale and exhale through to the lunge. And really lengthen that out through the top of the head, and we will twist to the right. And trying to find that twisting action coming all the way through the spine, not just reaching with your right arm. And a big reach back to step forward into the concave, back halfway up, folding over. Coming up to standing, big front body. And then pressing those arms wide down the side. We'll circle with the shoulders, just one to interlock the fingers. And lengthening up the front of the body to lift the chest, to lift the chin. And coming over, pressing out through the hands, hinging over. And release the hands, concave back, halfway up, folding over. And we'll step back with the left leg, so we're still in our right lunge. And then bringing that left knee down, coming up in Untitled, the kneeling lunge. And we'll twist to the right, arms parallel to the floor, and then left arm hooks over, pulling wide, and then finding the twisting action in the core and the spine, not just from the wedge of the left arm, and bringing the hands to namaste. And namaste in the center. And stepping back to the plank, vinyasa or not. And so maybe small vinyasa or small chaturanga from the plank. Let the knees come down to continue with more control. And then we're all back in downward facing dog. Lifting the left leg up, reaching long through the heel and reaching longer. Right heel to the floor and through to the lunge. In the long, low lunge, and we'll twist to the left. And finding that twist through the spine, not just to reach the left arm. And then stepping forward. Yes, stepping forward. Into the concave back, folding over. And coming up to standing. Big front body yawn. Maybe a little bigger than the first one. Arms coming down long through the top of the head. Interlock the fingers behind. And lengthen up the chest to lift the chin. And coming forward. Release the hands. Concave back, folding over. And we'll step back with the right leg. So we're in the left lunge again. And bringing that right knee down. And Vinyasana, the kneeling lunge. Twisting to the left, arms parallel to the floor. Hook the right arm over. Work that twist from the spine. And then bringing the left hand to Namaste. And to the center. And stepping back to the plank, vinyasa or not, downward facing dog. And let's lift that right leg up again. Reaching the left heel to the floor to help that right leg go higher. Bending the knee dog at the high fire height. And then through to the lunge. Let's turn to the elephant rider, feet on the diagonal, pressing those knees out. And then we'll do the slide. So shifting toward the left. So we keep our hips more or less parallel to the floor. And this works better with legs a little bit wider rather than not so wide. And then shifting over to the right. And once more to the left. And back to the center. And pressing the feet into the floor, coming up to standing, three-pointed star. And pressing the arms to parallel, turning the feet to parallel. And let's rotate the left leg toward the back of your mat out 90 degrees. And side bend, left arm up. And into the triangle on the left. And a few more breaths here. And coming back up, reaching with that right arm, turning the feet to parallel, and then same thing, right side, rotating that right leg out 90 degrees. Side bend, lifting the right arm. And then into the triangle, Trikonasana. Breathing your way in. And then let's come down to the right lunge and swoop the right leg back up behind you in three-legged dog. And then we're going to go to the sort of fallen triangle, but keeping both hands on the floor. So bring the right knee to the left elbow, outer edge of the right foot on the floor, kind of at 90 degrees, slide that out, pivot on to the inner edge or sole of the left foot. And then really try to square those shoulders to the floor, twisting that lower body to the left. And then let that right leg slide and lower the outer right hip to the floor. You might end up sinking in your shoulders a little. And then coming over, kind of a weird twisty cobra. Really reach through that left leg back there, wherever it might be. And then we'll cobra up and cobra down. Twice more. Keep pulling those shoulders around toward the right to keep square to the mat. And then the next time we come up, we'll push ourselves around and come to Konasana, the angle pose. So adjusting for your space. And let's come forward and over. And then come back up. And we'll take our left arms. Remember, I'm not the mirror here. Side bending over towards your right leg. So your right leg is kind of your front leg. Probably it's closer to the front of the mat than the left, at least. Anchoring that left sitting bone down, reaching out through the left heel. And then pulling down with that left arm, we'll bend the knees. I think we did this last Sunday, into the running deer, or the inside-outside legs, and then keep walking those hands around, twisting to the right once again. So you might go past square to the front of the mat, doesn't really matter at the moment. Twisting around. Feeling like that left leg, your back leg is wrapping around toward that right hand there. And then we'll just swing the left knee to the right knee, coming up on both knees, hip distance apart at the front of the mat. And we'll Ustrasana, the camel pose. Fingertips pointing down the sacrum or maybe on the sides there as we go up and over. Just go to where you hit that first little edge and breathe there. And then maybe easing yourself out a little more deeply. You can go for the heels if you feel ready for that or you want to do that. But sometimes it can be interesting not to reach right for the heels if you can do that easily. Stay here using a little bit more strength, really pulling the elbows in. And then lengthening up long through the top of the head. And we'll tuck those toes under, rolling back onto your feet. Take a couple breaths, letting that lower back release. And pressing the feet into the floor, expanding into the forward bend. And if you're not quite at the front of the mat, walking up to the front of the mat. And then let's step back with the left leg. So we're in the right lunge again. And we'll warrior one, turning that left heel in a little bit and coming up in the warrior number one. And sort of feeling that Ustrasana, as if your hands are there on the sacrum, pouring that down, coming up and over. Every breath taking you a little deeper into the pose. And then let's bring the arms down wide to the side, into the floor. Stepping back to the plank, vinyasa or not, downward facing dog. And then we will take 3 or 4 deep breaths in downward facing dog, or maybe in child's pose. And that was actually only one side we just did. So all of that all the way around to the left. All right, and here we go on the left. Lifting the left leg up. Reaching the right heel down. Bending the knee dog at the high fire. And then through to the lunge. And turning to the elephant line. And let's slide again. So maybe making your feet a little wider as you slide to the right toward the back of the mat. Reaching long through that left leg. And then sliding across to the left leg, reaching long through the right. And then once more across to the right. And back to the center, and getting maybe the feet have to come back in to come up in the 3-pointed star. Big lift up. And pressing the arms to parallel, feet to parallel. And we'll rotate the right leg out, back of the mat leg, 90 degrees. And bringing that right arm up, side bending away. And then see if there's a little bit more space beyond your usual place. And into the triangle. Still breathing yourself in more deeply, slowly and steadily, not pushing, but maybe it's a little deeper triangle than the first time here. Coming up, reaching back with that left arm to bring yourself up, turning the feet to parallel. And then we'll rotate the left leg out 90 degrees. And side bend, lengthening that left side up. And then maybe finding just a little more. And hinging over into the triangle on the left. And we still breathe ourselves in, feeling every moment there, trying not to push. So even when we're a little bit more warmed up, even when we can go a little deeper into the pose, we still have that same mindful process there. And then we turn down to the left lunge front of the mat where we came from. And we swoop the left leg back up behind. And then the fallen triangle sort of, but with both hands on the floor. So bringing that left knee to the right elbow. Outer edge of the left foot on the floor slides out. And then you let the right foot pivot. And then really feeling that twist you need a little bit to the left to keep the shoulders square to the floor as the hips twist away to the right. And then we'll lower that left outer hip down onto the floor. And coming over, and we'll do our 3 cobras, pulling the elbows in and back. And as you come over, then you can feel that right leg back there a little more, reaching through that inner right foot along the floor. And then cobra in up. Keep twisting those shoulders left to keep them square to the front of the mat. And 2 more cobras. And then coming up, pushing yourself around and into Konasana, the ankle pose. And coming forward and over. And coming up. Back up on top of those sitting bones, and we will side bend to the left, bringing the right arm up, and I'm not linear. And so the left leg is kind of the front leg toward the front of the mat. We'll reach back through the right leg, out the inner thigh, out the heel. And then pulling down with that right arm and pulling back toward the left hip as we let the knees bend into the running deer, the inside-outside legs. Keep walking the hands around to the left as far as they will go. And finding a good spot, that spirally sort of down twist to hold and there's that right leg reaching around towards your left hand. And coming up as we swing our right knee forward, pivoting around to come up on both knees, hip distance apart. And hands onto the sacrum, either behind or alongside, as we lift up and over into Ustrasana, the camel pose. Remember, you can always come out, regroup, and come back in again. And then one more breath here. Coming back up. And then tucking the toes under, rolling up onto your feet, crouching in a little ball, coming up higher, of course, if needed, letting that lower back ease out. Pressing the feet into the floor, expanding into the forward bend, coming to the front of your mat if you're not quite there. And then we'll step back with the right leg and into the warrior number 1. And then feeling that Ustrasana there. Pelvis going down, going up and over. Reaching the left sitting bone for the ground. Don't let that lunge start to creep up. And a big wide reach down the side to the plank. Vinyasa or not, downward facing dog. And 3 deep breaths here in downward facing dog. And then coming down, sitting back in child's pose. All right, one more little sequence here as we make our way back up to downward facing dog, vinyasa or not. So I'm doing the or not here. And then lifting the right leg up. Dog at the high fire hydrant. And you can waterfall to the wild thing here. Or our next destination will be warrior 2 if you want to get there sooner. And so waterfall into the wild thing, if you're coming along with me. And then we'll make our way back. And if you can, lifting the right leg again, or you could just step through. And then we'll step through to the lunge, warrior number 2. And then you can go into the triangle again or Ardha Chandrasana as we dance in warrior. And then either triangle or Ardha Chandrasana, the half knee. And if you're up here in Ardha Chandrasana, maybe the Chapasana variation, the rainbow variation, though this pose I've heard it called the candy cane. So bending the left knee, so you can just do it bending the left knee, trying to keep that leg parallel and not have the left foot up. And maybe that left hand can find the left ankle back there. somewhere. Maybe your foot goes up a little bit, but keep that knee lifted. Try not to let the knee go down. And maybe your foot pulls up a little, but still knee goes up as well. And if you're Chapasana-ing, letting that go, expanding back out into the Ardha Chandrasana, and then floating as best you can, the left leg back down. And take a little straightening of the right leg. We're all here in the triangle. A little extra press back and open with that left shoulder. Indulgent triangle. And then coming down back to the lunge. Vinyasa or not, downward facing dog. And we'll go to the left. All right, let's lift our left leg up. Dog at the high fire height. And then we're either waterfalling to the wild thing or maybe headed to the warrior two singer. And then if you're not already on your way, making your way out of that wild thing, trying to lift the left leg if you can. Lunge and warrior two. Dancing warrior. And then either the triangle or Ardha Chandrasana, the half. And if you're in that Ardha Chandrasana, Chandra is the moon, Ardha is half. Maybe doing the Chapasana variation, bending the right leg. So Chapasana is a bow or an arch, but it's the bow or arch like of a rainbow or in a building. Whereas the bow pose, the back bend there, that's the archer's bow. Anyway, maybe getting hold of that right ankle. And as you press the foot into the hand, try to keep that knee going up almost as much as the foot at least. And if you've got that bow, letting it go, expanding back out to Ardha Chandrasana. And then floating that right leg down. And pulling yourself up into a triangle. A little press back and open with that right arm. And coming to the lunge, stepping back, vinyasa or not, downward facing dog. Three deep breaths in downward facing dog. Coming down, sitting back in child's pose. And taking a slide out into our stomach, onto our stomach, into the Sphinx. Pulling back with the hands and elbows, reaching through the legs. Maybe the elbows lift a little as you pull through the hands. Coming down. Hands out across from the shoulders on the pads of the fingers, elbows up, rippling up, and reaching down. Doing that twice more. And hands out in front of you somewhere, maybe kind of thumbs by the eyes, coming up in a very long, spacious cobra. And coming down. And then squeezing those arms alongside. And here we are in our small cobra. And coming down, reaching long through the legs. And then let's come around to lying down. Oh. Take a few moments getting settled there on the floor. We're going to cross the right leg over the left. We're doing the thigh-to-thigh cross like the eagle pose. Give those thighs a little squeeze together, feeling the outer shins down here, squeezing together. So inner thighs, outer shins drawing together. And then reaching out wide through the arms, and we'll bring the right arm under. So left leg is on top, right leg on top, right arm under. Holding on to the shoulders, pulling those elbows towards your legs. Deep breath in the upper back, between the shoulder blades. And then wrapping those lower arms into the eagle pose, or we can just keep holding the shoulders. Forearms parallel to the ceiling. And then round up, squeezing the elbows and knees toward each other. So if you need more space, take the elbows a little to the right of the legs. Squeezing in. A comforting squeeze in, not a can barely breathe, choking yourself, squeezing. And then letting all that go. And we'll cross the left leg over, thigh to thigh. Inner thigh squeeze together. It's also kind of top of the thigh, back of the thigh squeezing there. And then outer shins. Pull those in together. And reaching out wide through the arms. And we'll cross the left arm under, getting hold of those shoulders, pulling the elbows down. Deep breath between the shoulder blades. And then wrapping the lower arms into the eagle pose arms, forearms parallel to the ceiling. And then squeezing the elbows and knees toward each other. Maybe taking the elbows a little off to the left if you've got more squeeze in. And try to squeeze in like you're giving yourself a big hug rather than clenching. And letting that go. Inhale, exhale out the mouth, sliding the legs out straight, and choosing the position for your arms into Shavasana. And centering the head and the neck. Closing the eyes. Inhale and exhale, releasing into the floor. Every breath letting go a little bit more. And then breathing back into your body. Or you can stay longer if you have more time. Moving the fingers and toes, getting the circulation going. Stretching the arms up overhead. And bending the knees. Making your way gently up to sitting. And sitting in any comfortable position with that long and spacious spine. Be inside yourself. Namaste. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Anne. Have